Okay, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, everyone. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank. Um, I'm Dr. Ron, Fatherhood Think Tank orator. Tonight we have an interesting, as always, an interesting topic tonight. That is a series for the rest of, I think, for the rest of the month. So the pros and cons of consensual fatherhood. This is part one. Normally, my discussion is usually about non-consensual fatherhood, and a lot of times I talk a lot about that. And um, brother, good brother, Johnny Gaspar, the, one of the major sponsors of the Father Think Tank, wrote something in our group chat at the band app. So again, if you are trying to get connected and be a part of what goes on behind the scenes of the Fatherhood Think Tank, you can connect with the band app. The band app will let you know what's going on when things are happening. You can definitely look on the advertisement down at the bottom, hit the link and join the band app. But he put in there this week about, we talk a lot about, what fathers who don't want to be fathers. And I'm glad to see some of the fathers here tonight, because I think tonight we're going to take our conversation to another place of the pros and cons of consensual fatherhood. And I talk a lot about consensual fatherhood because I have to talk so much about non-consensual fatherhood and where that balance is out. But as we're getting started tonight, I'm going to get the fathers who are here, people who are going to be on the panel tonight, to introduce themselves. And then I'm going to just run through our sponsors for the night show and then get in this conversation. So go ahead, start it off, introduce who you are, the number of children you have, short like that.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel
Are you
Light.
in France?
Can you hear me? What's going on, fam?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to 5 or 7 young adults, 3 young women, 4 young men, 1 granddaughter and 1 grandson. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Peace and love, everybody. My name is Aladdin Ken. I have 3 little children, 2 girls and a boy, ages 6. It's my oldest, 5 and 3. Great to be here.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Ed Tenney, and I am a father to 3 grown adults. I have 2 grandbabies with 1 grandbaby that's due next month. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
All right, good evening, everybody. This is Leonard Ross. I'm the father of 3, 1 18-year-old, 1 13, about to be 14, and a 12-year-old. 2 girls and 1 boy, and the man in the middle. Thank y'all for having me this evening.
Hey everybody, my name is Femi Fakinlade. I live in Maryland. I'm a father of 2 boys, magnificent boys, age 16 and age 13. I'm here with one of them now from track practice. He's very tired, but nonetheless, I'm here. I'm happy to be a part of this conversation.
Okay, great. Let me, before we get started, I just want to always recognize what the catalyst to allow us to have this show. I think it started, and I want to go through those. We'll start with our main sponsor. That is JAG, the JAG Attorney at Law, our main sponsor of the Fatherhood Think Tank. He is a start member of the Fatherhood Think Tank. Get that on stage. Attorney at Law, Mike J. Broward, West Palm Beach. He if you try to get in touch with him, looking for law services in in the area, you can hit Johnny A. Gaspar Esquire, j.gaspar@jag1law.com, number 305 827 8087. We also our partnership partners through Omega Psi Phi's Fatherhood Initiative Program. We start with our initial one, Fort Lauderdale Q's Zeta Chi chapter, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Boss list right now is Von Howard. He usually is a father on the show, and have some things that they're going to be doing in contact with the platform in a couple this month. I definitely want to invite everybody to join us. We'll talk about that later. We also have the Nigerian Q's Zeta Zainu chapter. So the Fatherhood Think Tank is international in our partnership with the Brothers of Omega Psi Phi in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. And then we also have our third partnership for the Fatherhood Initiative is Omega Lambda chapter of Omega Psi Phi in Philadelphia, Philadelphia Q's. And so those are our partnerships to really, as much as possible, try to spread the word of fatherhood and utilize this as a platform for each of those chapters to utilize in their fatherhood initiative programs. I just wanted to, say that without those bodies, sometimes we won't be able to make the places we really need. So really want to thank these guys, and sometimes they are the fathers who are here to talk, and who make a commitment. So we definitely want to thank them. So with that being said, let's get into this conversation. I hate that Johnny's not here, because he really, this is his. He'll probably make it to one, but being an attorney, that makes busy work and out here. So one of the big things when I think about the pros and cons of consensual fatherhood, what do you guys think of? I'll throw it out there immediately. What? Let me ask this question: what do you initially consider the idea of? Because I ask this all the time with non-consensual fatherhood. What does, to you, in your idea, what does consensual fatherhood look like?
Well, I'll go first. When we talk about the word consensual, to me that means not under duress. Something that I agreed to be something that I agreed to. So, in terms of fatherhood, oftentimes, one can be in a situation where someone, is, well, I'll put it this way, where parenthood or family was not planned. And sometimes, a lot of things are forced, or not forced, but are not agreed upon. Like, okay, we have a baby on the way. Okay, you want to be a father, or are you ready? Or no, I'm not ready. So that's, to me, that's a classic case of non-consensual, because I'm not consenting. I've consented to everything else, but the product is something I'm not consenting to. So it's, while everything else was fine and dandy, but the product of the performance may not be welcomed by both parties.
Mm.
So that's when we have a situation of non-consensuality. That's my take.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Come on, guys, don't be shy. I mean,
All right.
I could jump in.
Go ahead.
What's going on, Dr. Ron? How you feeling today?
all right, good, my good brother.
Good. So I think what's important is probably understanding, what the situation and the context is. I know we always talk about context and things about the nature of how did one become a father, or did just merely fatherhood essentially happen to him. So when I think about specifically fatherhood, and I think about what we see specifically in the Black community, and what we understand about fatherhood is how men become fathers. Like, what is the criteria? What is the situation? What is the circumstance? Rather than just having a baby, right? Because those are two completely different things. And I think is in terms of trying to differentiate between the two, so we can come to an understanding of what does it mean then at that point to consent to become a father, right? Because in some cases, we hear all the situations from growing up in the neighborhoods that we've been in part of, and the situations that we've heard in our counterparts and friends, and we understand that there's more complex and it's more layered, right, than what we understand in terms of the mainstream discussion of what we hear in the public about fathers being absent, right? So the question is, were they ever fathers, or did they just have a baby? So I think it's a little bit more deeper, and I'm sure we're going to get into this conversation. But I think for me, it's just consensual fatherhood is something that has to be genuinely informed and agreed upon amongst both parties. But really, if the man himself is ready to become a father, or he's just having a baby. So that's my take.
It's good.
Yeah. Ron, you in this topic. You just won't let it go, would you? You just won't let it go, would you, Ron? All right.
I didn't come up with it. No, I didn't come up. It wasn't me. I just listen. It was sent to me, and Johnny wanted to put it out there, so I say, hey, let's get it going.
Okay. Well, I think when it comes to fatherhood, I think we blur the lines between, and I think we vicariously use and can use consensual as a, okay, two words here. You got consensual and consequential. And so when it comes to fatherhood, we're saying consensual, but sometimes I think we hide behind consensual because of the consequentials, things that comes along with it. And so I think fatherhood is not so much consensual, but inevitable. And here's why. Unlike, we actually carry that child way before their mother carries that child. I think it becomes consequential because parenting doesn't even happen until we initiate it. And so if that is the fact, and I mean, that's just the order. And I'm just talking about just the order if we're going to go on traditional order and not talking just this male hierarchy or all that other stuff like that. But I'm just talking on the just the biological order of things. Fatherhood in its conceptual state starts with us, right? Because and I think if we took, because if you're just saying you're just having sex, then you're using procreation as a recreation. That's still going to be consequential. But if we was actually making love like we're supposed to, then love will give birth to love, which is a man and a woman give birth to a child, and that's how it's supposed to happen. Now, order doesn't stop because we become out of order, right? And I think that's our problem. We think because order is supposed to just give us a break because we out of order. And this is where the consequential, not so much consensual, but the consequential comes. And so I think we're leaning, when it comes to men, we don't have what they call which is your topic. We don't have a consensual problem. We have a consequential problem. And That's what we're more up against. Not a consensual, because you're saying, oh, I don't impregnate this woman, right? I done planted my seed, right? I done, more than likely, you initiate, I'm like, because we initiate probably 90% of the conception in this world, not even in the country, but in the world. 90% of the conception is initiated by men because we just want to have sex. That's basically it. And so because we have that, and we're to a certain extent historically victims of sexism because we're the culprits of it, then the consequential actions of that takes away from the consensual right to it. If that make any sense, the consequential actions of that takes away from the consensual right to what we're getting ready to talk about right now. And so, is there a what you're saying, a consensual fatherhood thing like that? I would be like, I can give you 50% of the argument, but you can never get 100% of it.
Okay, so I just wanted to, just be clear on the topic, and because I don't want it to get convoluted with non-consensual, and it become, we really stay close on the idea of the pros and the cons. And this is really to talk more about consensual fatherhood in this context. Refers to a man actively attending to choose to embrace the role of a father rather than falling into it by accident or obligation. And I think that's where this decision marks a profound shift in a person's identity, bringing a new, unique set of rewards and challenges. And this is what we really want to be able to try to look at in this 3-part series of kind of like looking at and analyzing the focus of the emotion, the psychological, and the personal impacts of that choice, where we see so often, and me being a strength-based therapist, I like to look for the solution. I like to look for the positive thing, even though it's problematic, right? And so a lot of times to get the solution, you got to deal with the problem. A lot of times we know, and we don't highlight enough, fathers who are consensual. I mean, and they have followed a tradition of this idea of, this is what I want to do. This is what we decide. Now, not just what I want to do. This is what we have decided as a union with my partner to do, and this is how we're planning to work it out. And a lot of times when you can come together with that type of unity, you usually fare pretty well. And there are factors, there are things that's going to push you here and there. But I think that goes back to the core of establishing your core relationship with a partner. Like, that's what makes consensual fatherhood different from non-consensual, because a lot of times the people in non-consensual haven't made this pact with their partner. They haven't made this context that we are going to do this because we want to produce kids in a way together. Because one of the things I've seen so often with parents who had difficulties, it was more of the parenting styles. And that's because they didn't agree on parenting styles before having the children. Like the issue, that's what the issue. We have a parenting style, and this is the parenting style that I have, and this is the parenting style you have, and they don't coincide with each other. And that's a difficult place, not just for the parents, but also for the child, who really sometimes need a real consistent idea of who and what is in front of them and how it operates. So just looking at that, and when we think about, looking at these pros and cons and what do they look like? And I guess one of the things when I'm saying cons, I want to be very clear that I want to again separate this idea from someone who didn't want to do this, who that wasn't their plan, because those cons for a consensual father are completely somewhat different from a non-consensual father. They're completely different, because this is something that I said I wanted to do, and they take on a different stress capacity. They can't, it's like one of those things where accountability comes into play. You can't say, well, I ain't want to do this, but I got to do it. You said that you wanted to do it. So you can't You can't cop out and say, oh man, this too much. I'm having to give up too much of my life. I gotta be doing, you don't get an opportunity because this was your choice. Now, when people get a choice to say, hey, I'm going to not do something. But I think that you see with men, and I'm very distinct about this. Men, when they commit to things, they do it. And they do it mostly to their best ability. I don't say they do it perfect. They do it to their best ability because that's what they committed to do. Sometimes they can be wrong because they might not have the skills or how to do it the right way. They didn't have a model to what it should be in the society, but it's really their potential when they have made that commitment. And I think that's the first thing I would ask you guys. What does it look like? And where does it come from if you have that experience of the idea of I'm making this idea of that kind of commitment to become a father, to become a parent? And what is the first thing you think you have to do that?
All right, Ron, I'm not going to say anything about that, but what I'm going to do is take the negative in this conversation, which means I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to play the diva's advocate. Right? So I'm going to play the diva's advocate on this. And so we can have a real rounded conversation when it comes to this particular topic. But I'm going to let one of the brothers speak, and then we can go ahead and get this started.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and beat you to it, Lionel, because I think you got to, whether it's consensual or not, you got to account for the regret factor. Because you can consent that I want to do this, but you can also regret doing something after you agree to it. And then that can lead to a whole different emotion towards the child and the mother. So I look at that as a con to consenting to fatherhood, because you always got to account for that regret factor. Now, I'm not saying every father regrets, but it's still an emotion that comes with agreeance. So that's what I want to add to the conversation, because that also creates another ripple effect. The way they treat the child, there's always kind of negative energy, because in hindsight, I really didn't want to do this, but I felt culturally obligated to do it because what would be the outlook of society? How would society look at me if I didn't do it?
Right. So I want to be very clear. Again, I'm trying to get us out of that mindset, right? I'm trying to get us out of the mindset of that, because in the true belief of consensual, you would not have that idea, because if you are going to have something like that, it would be more based on anxiety or fear of not doing good at what you decided to do. Not that you regret doing it, because you would have thought long and hard. This is, we know that many chances we take on responsibilities, right? We'll take something on. But once we decide to take it on, normally this is what we decide to do. No one listen, there was no force. There was no circumstance. It wasn't falling into, it wasn't anything. This was like, yo, this is, and I guess for me, that's why I'm asking that first question. What would be the first thing that would be the thing to let you know that this is what you're ready to do to have this child? What's that first thing in the mind of a man or fathers? And I think people need to hear this. I think people need, because I think people are not thinking about what's the first thing they think about in the making the decision to say, I want to be a father. I want to be a father. I'm going to be, like I hear people say, I'm going to be a father. Or I need to be with a woman who's going to be able to give me kids. What is that in the mind of that father who is saying those things? And what based on your experience, or maybe some knowledge you've heard from somebody else?
So Dr. Ron, maybe you can help clarify consensual fatherhood from a traditional social construct, whether you're married, or this I wouldn't say it's a new construct, but the non-traditional aspect of consensual fatherhood. And the reason why I want to make a delineation between the two is because generally, under the traditional sense, you get married, and the idea of getting married is for procreation. And that there's an assumption that it's understood that when you get married and you're, of childbearing age, that we're going to procreate, thereby automatically consenting to fatherhood. Now, from a non-traditional aspect, I'm not exactly sure how you how you describe that, because man, I just don't understand the concept of wanting to be a father outside of that traditional social marriage construct.
Tenny, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I think that is a pinnacle. That's a linchpin of being a consensual father. I think the basis, the foundation of that comes from becoming a husband to a wife that you want to be married to, and that you eventually would want to start a family with. I think that is where, and again, I say that we spend so much time looking in the negative, we don't ever get to the speaker conversations of this in the positive, and understand that those fathers who found their wife, who decided that, we're going to have 3 kids, and understand why we're going to have them, and what that's going to look like, and all of those things. We spend so much other time talking about the fathers who didn't want, because they are the ones who bring the most, we see the court cases of child support, we see the court cases of custody, but when we don't ever highlight or look at, and I want this to be something that we really, pivotally jumping on, the fathers who I made the choice to make this choice with my wife, traditionally, because I don't think, I have to agree, I don't think unless you have another way that you cultivated that has these morals and ethics to being with this partner, that there's a certain kind of commitment that's going to be there. I don't think you can, outside of this idea of this union that we're going to have, to be able to have these children, most of it is going to look like something else, because it's not centered in both of you making a decision. It's kind of centered in maybe one person making a decision, another person following along, And even again, let's keep it 100. Sometimes people can be married and made a decision that they want to be together, but they don't want to have children. So that's another aspect. There are people who say, we don't want children, and I think that goes into picking a partner who says, I don't want children. We just ain't gonna have no children. And I know many people like that who have successful lives, and they contribute immensely to other people's children and other family members in the same capacity I think that they would if they was parents, but they made that decision not to do so. So I do want to support that. I think that one thing, and I don't think that can happen without the traditional commitment of having a wife that agrees that you guys want to be parents and raise children together.
Dr. Ron, I want to say something real quick, because now I'm following you, I'm tracking you. And I think for me personally, right, I think the only negative aspect that I could speak about for consensual, fatherhood, or want to be a father, is the fact that how I was raised without one. That in turn made me want to be a father, a better father, a good father, whatever that was, right, without any understanding of what that is, right? So for me, before I was married, I always knew I wanted to be a father. I don't want to have children. I don't want to have a lot of children. And I wanted to be a good father, whatever that means, right, to me, because it wasn't like I had a distinct view. So I'm not going to go into the negative, but I'm going to talk about the consensual part, the positive part. I went into relationships, right, knowing that I wanted to have children and get married and be a father. And that came on later on in life, of course, right? You know, as I matured and matriculated through life. But what more important for me was understanding that what I wanted to do. And there wasn't any playbook. It was pretty much the opposite of, you know, understanding. And I think as I became a first time father, I would say my first child, then that continuously changed and shift in dealing with, you know, my sense of responsibility of understanding what I needed to do for my children. And I think that was very important for me to understand. And it was always in a positive. I enjoy being a father. And then it's funny because, you know, I grew up around a bunch of women, right? Single women at that. And, you know, what happened is that they told me, they said, you know, I saw some elders and they was like, do you have any children? They was like, I was like, no. They was like, all right, well, until you have some children, all of the children are your children. So I always had this sense of responsibility to, you know, be a caretaker or someone who nurtures or someone who is giving. And as, you know, my wife and I agreed to have children, we had an understanding of what my role was. I had to understand what my role was and what her role was. But then again, that completely shifted for the positive because I wanted to take more of a responsibility for the upbringing of my children.
Well said. Go ahead, J. Rob, introduce yourself and you jumped on. We ain't see him as like the ghost of Christmas past or something. Go ahead, J. Rob, introduce yourself.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? J. Rob Menard, father of 2 young adults. I guess that's it for now. I was listening to well, I saw the topic and I wanted to jump on and just have some conversation with it. It's been a minute since I've been on here, so I'm glad I was able to take some time to do that. But when they talk about consensual fatherhood, for me, it's all about accepting a responsibility, right? And I briefly heard Ron ask the question, what's the first thing you think about when you decide with consensual fatherhood? I can't speak for everybody else, but the first thing that I considered was, is this the person that I want to be in any type of relationship with for the next 18 years of my life? Before I decided anything, I know I wanted kids. I knew all that other stuff I wanted. That's the first decision I had to make. Was this someone in any aspect? If something went wrong, if everything goes right, is this someone that I can see myself having a relationship? Not even if it's a romantic one, but just a relationship, period. So for me, when it came to deciding for consensual fatherhood, that was the number one thing, because I've seen so many ways that it could go wrong that I wanted to make sure when I made that decision, you know, it was at least a right one in my mind.
I think
Right.
I think well, it's good to hear your voice, Gene. Definitely, brother. You have been on my mind a lot. I think you hit it. You're hitting it. This is the prep to my question. This is the true prep, because I have not seen in my research, I've not seen in my practice the idea of that occurring without that key point, right? Without saying, hey, I have to look for the woman that I'm going to have my children with, not just have them with, but also be able to raise them. And so that takes time to find out if that person and yourself have the same capacities, morals, ethics, connectivity, communication, compromise. Is that the person that I know that I can do it? Because sometimes I think what I found and have seen is people would pick people on a couple of factors, and then they find out that both the man and the woman are not good co-parents in their agreed commission to become parents, and that's because I think sometimes we haven't did a lot of vetting of our partners or the person that I plan to. Look, somebody says sometimes radical that they should start making licenses for people to have parents, to be parents, right? This is in a radical society saying, hey, people got to apply for a license to have children, and any children they didn't have, any children came out of the opposite way would be confiscated or something of that nature. So these are, there's radicalness, but I think that we look at the core, and when we look at the successes, I think that definitely what Gene presented shows some of the success from beginning to end from that aspect. I'm not going to say they're the only success, because I think that human beings have a wonderful compassion for change and development. But I think that a lot of times from the core, from beginning to the end, you can see that established in parenthood when the two parents have come together for that partnership.
Now I'm putting on my divas. I'm going to play the divas advocate right now, Ron. All right. Okay, here we go. So I'm listening to you, right? And this idea of this consensual fatherhood sound more like it's the equivalent of how women have their mind made up for fairy tale weddings. It seemed like a fairy tale fatherhood, what you're saying right now, because it seemed like almost everything almost have to be perfect for the male, for him to make the right decision, right? Even though he's not globally, and I'm just being blunt, he's not globally conditioned to be so. And so he wants all this right from the woman, but not even conditioned to give right to a woman. See, so then we're not talking practically right now. And that's what's going to make this consensual thing a fairy tale fatherhood, because everything you just explained, it's more of a what we willing to receive. And we haven't explained anything that we're willing to give right now. And so when we talk about fatherhood and parenting in general, number one, we're not giving ownership up to the fact that certain people don't get the right to be consensual anything. When it comes to being a parent, for most women, it's not consensual, it's circumstantial, right? And so now I think we tend to, particularly as men, and I always say we do have that male privilege, contrary to popular belief, just to sort of show as sexism exists, we have a male privilege. And we tend to understand and create narrative from those privileges. And so we're saying consensual, but for the most part, 90% of women having children is circumstantial. And so, and when it comes to parenting, and the two P's, because parenting, when you think parenting, the most important thing when it comes to parenting is the ability to pivot. You like that one, Gene, because I know that's your word. And so as parents, we have to pivot. As a matter of fact, you can't be a parent unless you pivot. And so we have to be already willing. And I think if we tend to nurture our women, like women nurture their children, then we can have a more footing, more credibility when it comes to being consensual fathers. But we're saying being consensual fathers, and nobody's saying, I'm like, hey, how you gonna be a consensual father or consensual anything if you haven't first consented to being a husband and securing that woman first? And so we're talking about securing a child and just totally overriding the woman, and that's why I had to put play the divas advocate on that part.
Well, I think that's becoming flushed out.
You hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you, Femi.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Y'all can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you.
Well, I can't hear none of y'all. It's all good. Carry on.
It's like you're clear now. We can see you moving.
Okay, so
what I was gonna say, I think so Lightborn, I think you have two different, you're using a second definition of consensual fatherhood, right? There are two definitions of consensual fatherhood. There's the one who is actively saying, I want to be a father, I want to have a relationship, I want to raise a child. I want to have it with a community, right? Then you have your other consensual father, and I know Ron's gonna give you a little pushback on this one. You have your other consensual father who's just out there having unprotected sex, and then they have a kid with some random person, and now they're pushed into fatherhood, right? With what you're saying, like, Born, I think that's
absolutely, Jen, you're absolutely right. That you ain't gonna get no push. That is exactly the two. Listen, these are exactly the two people we're talking about.
So Lightborn's given that second definition. For me, when I think of a consensual father and the planning to have a kid, all that he says is taken into consideration. As a man, there's a level of responsibility that you have, right? And once you decide to become a father, those responsibilities become a little bit greater, because now you have to understand that I'm going to be placed in a role model position. No one else should be a role model for my child. I should be the best role model for my child. So you are putting on those pressures. And I heard someone talking about that a little earlier, about the pressures that you put on because of the fact that you now have consented to be a father, right? And so when I think about consensual fatherhood, I always think about that first aspect where I feel like I'm in control because I've chosen, and the person on the other end has also chosen to be that person, to allow me to be the father with them. You understand what I'm saying? Meaning the woman that you choose is going to understand that her needs are being met and your needs are being met before you even decide on that next step. And so that type of consensual fatherhood is 100% a give and take situation. That second one that Lightborn is talking about, I 100% agree. It's one-sided, it's lopsided. And sometimes in that sense of consensual fatherhood, it's forced upon you. Although you say, it's not, I didn't want it. I told her I didn't want kids, but you didn't do anything to protect yourself from not having kids. Absolutely. So you then place all the responsibility on the other person and losing all accountability on yourself. And so those are two separate conversations from what I think with the original question that Ron was asking in the beginning. You see what I'm saying? That makes sense?
No, that makes sense.
I see exactly what you're saying.
Go ahead, TD.
Yeah.
Brother Jim.
And I think...
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
No, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just going to say, in your deference to Lightborn's second definition, I can't legitimately call that consensual fatherhood. If it's pushed upon you to, be in this position, that's not consensual. That's like being standing at the cliff, being pushed off, and then saying, "Oh man, I just want to see over the side of the cliff. I didn't want to jump." But you're gonna push me off, and you're hollering all the way down. To me, that's not consensual fatherhood.
Yeah, but it is because okay. What you're saying is
Lucy.
he took you, TD. What you're saying is I'm the guy. Okay, I'm gonna take your analogy. So you stop short for the view, someone else comes and push you behind, right? From behind, so you start to fall. What if you took the first step off the cliff and someone just touched your shoulder as you went down? You decided to jump. Just because I touched your shoulder as you're falling doesn't mean I pushed you. Now, when you're looking at the second definition of the consensual fatherhood, you decided to have unprotected sex. No one forced you. Now, if you are drugged or you are somewhat in a situation as a male and it's thrust upon you, that I agree 100%. But if you knowingly and willingly decide I'm going to sleep with this woman, I'm not going to use any protection, and the results are going to be the results. Whether it ends in a pregnancy or it doesn't, that's going to be the result. And so you can't say it's non-consensual, because the minute you decide to have unprotected sex, you left the decision up to someone else. So you consented for them to have the right to say you're a dad or you're not a dad.
Okay, that sounds. Listen, again, when we play with this consensual thing, again, I think it becomes again, and not to downplay it, but it's a certain extent, it's a fairy tale fatherhood. And here's why.
So,
because you're talking about more so of we talk about from what we want and not from who we are, right? And a lot of this stuff stems from who we are, not what we want. And so what we want sounds real good on the surface, but who we are is where the sound good starts to dissipate. And so the circumstance is not so much about who we want. The conversation sounds real good. It's the commitment. And so the conversation is what we want, but the commitment stems from who we are. And that's what makes parenting so circumstantial, because we can't separate ourselves from who we are versus who we want. And that's where the conflict starts to happen within us, not with nobody else. The conflict was always going on with us, within us, way before we transfer it off to any woman, for that matter. But again, I'm just playing devil's advocate, so y'all bear with me.
well, I want to piggyback a little bit off of that, right? Because, I get where you're coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with the fact that if you decide to have unprotected sex, it makes it consensual. Because what if you're a 14, 15-year-old just being immature and reckless, and then you have unprotected sex, and now you're a teenage dad, and your parents say you got to take care of this child, not because you had the maturity capacity to want to be the father, and that wasn't the plan. You were just trying to get you something. So I just think at the end of the day, consensual means I agree, and regardless of the circumstance, are you agreeing to be the father? Because you can't have a child without unprotected sex unless the condom goes. So are you agreeing, whether it was with or without protection? Did you agree to have this child after you find out this person was pregnant? And I think that's where you define is, did you make a consensual decision to be a father?
No, that's whether you want to shirk the responsibility after that consensual. Because what are you gonna say if she comes up? Let's just say let's do it like this. You have sex with a woman. She agrees to have sex with you. Later on, she says, you raped me. What are you gonna say? The sex was consensual, right? So now I'll take your example as a teenage dad. We talk to our kids, or, parents talk to their kids about safe sex. Don't go out there having unprotected sex. We don't say it because of mainly pregnancy, but we do say it because of the diseases that are out there. You never know. You want to make sure you protect yourself. And a result can be a baby. You as a teenager, you want to have fun. You want to be reckless. You go and have unprotected sex. You have consented to allow, and this is what what I want you guys to understand. You have consented to give up your decision whether she becomes pregnant or not and becomes a mother, to her then saying, if I get pregnant, I'm going to decide whether you become a father. So you've allowed that power shift to change, which your consent, you've now given someone else the consent in that situation. Whether you're a reckless teenager, whether you're a reckless adult, any age. Because any guy would say, hey, man, I was just out there having fun. I'm still in college. I'm trying to live my life. She's trying to knock me down. Man, she just wants me because I got a good job and money and I got a car. I got all this. There's always going to be an excuse on why another woman has decided to make you a father. But the first decision on whether she has that authority is on you. So once you give it up, you have then said, I consent for someone else to make this decision for me. in that scenario. Again,
I knew we can draw him out. I knew we can draw him out. We just get it good. I knew he'd come out the woodwork. Look who in the house. Please introduce yourself.
Is that for me?
You know exactly who it's for. Ron spoke you up earlier too, talking about he hoped you would be here. Well, now you here.
Yes. Good evening, brothers. Good evening, viewers. Thank y'all for being here. My name is Johnny Gaspard. I'm a father of 2 grown adults that's still in my pocket, but I love them dearly. I hope they call me on Father's Day the way they call a mama on Mother's Day, but I'm gonna leave that alone. But I'm sure they will. And grateful to be here. Brother Dr. Ron Osborne, thank you so much for running with this topic. I shared it with the brothers in the band app, and I was very grateful that he put it on. I got caught up today, unfortunately, so I couldn't come in earlier. But when I saw the title, I was like, okay, Ron, like my idea. I love it. I'm going to run with it. Listen, I didn't look at, and I'm hearing Gene just say what he said. Because I've been hearing Ron on this non-consensual fatherhood thing for a while now. So to hear Gene's perspective after Brother Ross just talked was a little different. Because Gene is saying, if I'm guessing, I just want to make sure I'm hearing right, that you gave your right to her when you decided to have unprotected sex, even though you might have used a condom, like Brother Ross shared, and it unfortunately that contraceptive didn't do its job. But you gave up your right when you went ahead and had unprotected sex with her and told her to go ahead and make the decision because she's the only one that can have the baby. So I never thought of it that way, Gene. He kind of messed my head up with that one because I was definitely on Dr. Ron's side, and I'm still there somewhat with the non-consensual thing. But that was a very interesting turn on it. And I just wanted the reason why I thought of this topic, y'all, there were so many things that I've been seeing lately on TV, social media, where men, whether they're married or not, go in and have these relationships with women, and they end up having the children being born of it. And in some instances, they are okay with it, they want it, but in others, they don't. So I wanted to kind of discuss, and there's other, that's why Ron listed as part A, because I've been seeing, married men who are having children with their wives thinking this is their baby, raising the child, only to find out later on the child isn't theirs. So is that and even when a father comes in and decides to be the father to a single mom and that area. So I just thought this was a great topic with the pros and cons to it. And Gene just messed my whole head up with that whole I gave up my consent mindset, sort of like in the criminal justice system when the officer asks you, can I search your car? And you say yes. At that point, you gave up all your rights to whatever is in the vehicle to argue that wasn't yours. So again, I hear you, Gene, and I know Ron. I hope Dr. Ron got a good comeback for your point on this, and I'm gonna be quiet from now. Give me something, Ron. Give me something.
Well, listen, I'm trying to stay focused on the consensual aspect of this, right? And not get twisted into going to put out my doctoral thesis and start busting stuff down. I'm trying to stay neutral of that. But I hate to say, in many instances, I have to agree with Gene in a very large aspect of what he's saying. And this is why it is so important. I think that as men, and I think Dr. Kinley was here earlier, he was saying that when the first thing you got to think about is when you're going out to look in this idea of sexuality, women, people to be with, and you know that you want to, because I think a lot of men, all men want to have children. The problem that you must make the mistake is that you may not want to have children with that person. And so that's where your non-consent comes in. Consensual is, oh, this is the person, because I can think of, there's many men, I think, out there who have children, and okay, I'm gonna even be even more wild. I'm just gonna speak from some context of experiential things. there are men who have children, who have had children with women, and they were not happy. That's not what they want to do, but they fulfilled the obligation, or at least in the idea that they could feel the obligation and responsibility. And later been with the woman that they wanted to have children with, even after those childbearing days was over. Right? And you see this very often happening. And it then says, who, we live in a society where, in your profession, whose fault is it? There's never a hung decision jury in this court, right? So it got to be somebody's fault. Either it's your fault or either it's her fault. Either one, somebody got to be somebody got to be guilty. Somebody got to be innocent. And going with Gene's saying is that we have a higher accountability, responsibility, or we're just guilty. I mean, we're not talking about them one-offs that you're talking about, where you get married to your wife and you have 3 kids with her, and then one of your kids have leukemia, and you go to the doctor, and then you find out that kid not yours, and then you go check, none of your kids is yours. But guess what? That person made but here's this man right here who had already made a commitment to be a consensual father and actually did the things that means what it means to be a father. And so only to find out that those children may not have, the children was not his. Now, again, it's that man. Now, we're going to say that the Gene's argument is that man too, it's his fault for having sex with it, being with his wife, and his wife had kids with somebody else. So it's his fault that the kids are not
Ron, well, that's the problem. You're not in that situation. You just actually explain, when you talk about the pros, the very definition of a consensual father. Because after that man has raised those kids and successfully loved those kids, and whether it's his or not, he's not just going to automatically stop loving those kids. And this is what you call the epitome of consensual fatherhood. Because after that wrong is doing, and you can still come to a right with those children, that's consensual fatherhood. You understand? But I think we talk about it in the more salacious stuff, but we don't really talk about it from the scientific stuff that happens every day, because men find out every day that those kids are not theirs. But they still say, you know what? My fatherhood wasn't based on blood. You understand? And it might even been on a base of shed blood. It might have been based on sacrificial blood. You understand? And so you can shed blood either way. We can either shed blood or I sacrifice blood to get you with the way you are. And so you can be a father either way. You understand? As long as you have a shared bloodline, be it biological or sacrificial. That's the way I see it. And I see men do it every day. I see grandfathers do it. Those are consensual fatherhood. I see stepfathers do it. Those are consensual fathers. So when we want to talk about consensual fathers and the pros of it, then we need to highlight the men that are successfully consensual fathers.
And to piggyback off what Lightborn is saying, which I agree with that 100%. It's one thing to say, I want to be with someone, like I was saying before with the definition. I choose the person I want. They choose me. We're in a relationship, committed, and we have kids. But then that true consensual father, to take it one step further, is that stepfather. The one who comes in and says, I'm choosing to be a father figure to this child. I know that it's not mine, but I want to be there for that child for the rest of his life. That's one of the biggest aspects of consensual fatherhood. Now, the second phase that with Ron's scenario and what Lightborn touched on is that father who later on finds out that those aren't his kids and still continues to be a father through the deception of the person he thought was 100 with him from day one, right? Mm-hmm. That is like he said, that for me is like, yes, that's the epitome of father, because through everything, you understand that these kids have nothing to do. And the love that I actually gave is so genuine that it doesn't matter that they're not mine, because they are mine.
Well,
Go ahead.
I know you got some. I know you got an objection. They want to bring in some other evidence, but let me run this down, and I think this is important because Lightborn brought it up and Robert reinforced it. You know, one of the things of the pros of consensual fatherhood, and I think when we look at how this is looking, they describe some of the attributes already. One is profound personal growth and meaning. So if you're going to be a consensual father, one of the pros is that you have profound personal growth and meaning. You have a deep emotional bond. You want to improve health and lifestyle. You want to increase empathy and emotional intelligence. You want to strengthen relationships. You want to leave a legacy. Those are some of the pros of consensual fatherhood. And I think that based on what they just said, those things are there. That man that scenario, that crazy scenario that we gave, that finding out the kid's not his, this man would have did all those things. These would have been the foundations that he stood on when he made the commitment to be there. So no matter what had happened, right? No matter what he found out, these things still, the blood wouldn't have changed anything because it was him. Like I said, and I said this earlier, when we have made the commitment to say this is what we're going to do, we stick to it no matter what happens.
And I must agree with you on that, because one of the biggest thing of that scenario that all y'all just referenced and talked about is a mental space and a spiritual space that allows you to look beyond the faults of one person to still love on somebody else. But we're not just talking about loving, because each of you men here and those who are fathers that are watching know that fatherhood isn't just about me showing you love, but it's a financial commitment. It's a spiritual commitment. It's a time commitment. So even though I know, and especially if those children are younger, okay, it's one thing if they're older. I've already, unfortunately, I got to bite the bullet on this because I done did it for 18 years. And I just found out now my son need a kidney transplant and I don't match because we got different, the blood type though. That don't make no sense. AB negative, he got Z, whatever it is, and it don't match. So I just got to bite the bullet on that one, right? But let's say the kids are 5, 6, 7 years old. And I've done this for the last 7 years. I was there where she spit him out the whole 9. I cut the umbilical cord, all that stuff. I might have ate a piece of the placenta, that nasty thing that I hear daddies be doing, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Nonetheless, right? I've made that commitment for the last 7 years, and now I know what fatherhood requires of me, the pro of it. And I find out this situation now. How do I continue to be the father to those children that they need, even if I choose, and as Ron said, I stick to it, and Lightborn and Gene talked about truly choosing that. How do I emotionally get to that? Because I have a connection with these children. I've raised them. I changed Pampers. I did all of these things. And now here I find out at 7, 6, and 5, they not mine. Oh, Lord. How do I deal with that to be the father that y'all are talking about from a consensual perspective?
Well, what you just said was you just really said it. The answer is in your question, right? Because you already emotionally there. You understand? To change the emotion will be traumatizing. You understand? It would take more to change than to actually be who you are, because you're already there 5 years. So you got 5 years of experience of guess what? Doing something healthy, which is loving those children. 5 straight years. And to do something that's contrary to that is where all the trauma starts. And so psychologically, you won't be impacted because the child is not yours. You'd only be impacted emotionally by her, not them. Because your love for them it's not the same thing. Your trauma and your emotional trauma didn't come from them; it came from her. And so once you start to sort things out, and we prioritize, and we do, just because, and it's just like in a regular relationship. When our relationships don't make it, we don't take it out on the child, or we don't separate from our children. We just find a way to, guess what, pivot with the mother, and so we can continue to pursue what we was already doing with those children.
Timmy, I know you got something.
I think that's easier said than done. Does it happen in society? Yes. But everybody not gonna take that approach. You know, I was trying to get in earlier, but I'm gonna take it to another level. When you talk about consensual father, right? You got fathers that have their own kids and will love another man's kids better than their own kids because of the woman. So when you're saying consensual, again, we got to get back to the root of the word, consent. You're giving consent. I'm agreeing to do this duty. At the end of the day, I've said I'm going to be the father. I'm choosing to be the father. There's other man's kids, my kids. This is what I'm consenting to do, regardless of how we got to that point. But yeah, I just think that's easier said than done to say that I'm going to find out this somebody else's kid and still be in agreement to stand in the light. I think that's kind of like the when you go to the funeral, right? And everybody's saying we got to do better at communicating. I think in that initial moment, everybody is genuine with what they're saying, but you go 2 months down the road, you back to not speaking. After you get out of that initial moment and it really started to hit you like, hey man, this ain't my kids. It's gonna be that day you gonna get that phone call to help out. That decision you'd have made, that where you were saying, this is my child, I gotta be there. You gonna say, well, at the end of the day, no, I ain't got it this time. You know what I mean? Now you have that choice to say I ain't got it, and you ain't got that constraint over your head of I'm not being there for my child. So I think that's a factor we got to also take into account.
Well,
let me add
from a legal perspective, I'll say this, Brother Ross. Once she's married and you're married, they're your children under the law. So I know. You got me? So I know. And if you on that birth certificate, you ain't getting out of it either. Well, no, not necessarily. But if you find out after that there was some deception, and I wish that the justice system will hold them accountable the same way they want to hold men accountable when they're deceiving. Yeah. I wish the justice system will hold women as accountable. Unfortunately, you got to go through the process now of withdrawing yourself, filing legal action against her to not be financially responsible for those children if you choose to go that route and step away.
But Johnny.
Yes, sir.
But Johnny, we just imagine what that means. Listen, imagine what that really means to a man who is a consensual father. That is so difficult to even begin the process. True. Because I think it was already said that this man knows it consciously it is not the kid's fault. Listen, many of the non-consensual fathers. I'm gonna bring them up. I didn't mean to bring them up, but I'm gonna bring them up. Many of the non-consensual fathers in the same capacity would do anything for their children. They just don't want to have to deal with the woman that they have this break with from having a child. Now that's a whole nother dynamic, because many non-consensual fathers eventually wanted to be consensual fathers. As I said before, it was just the person that they end up finding themselves to give their consent to was not the person they wanted to consent with.
Even in that scenario, around, at least he knows that's his children. You see what I'm saying? So even though he don't want to have nothing to do with her, he knows those are his children. It's where, as Brother Ross shared, mentally you got to say, okay, I know these are not my kids. There was deception involved, but I love them, and I'm going to do everything I can. And then they had that moment where she going to call you, because they still minors, and talk about these kids need. And at that moment, part of me going to want to say, Bia, you need to call their daddy. You might want to call their daddy.
I just want to let me bring this in really quick. Because we're here And we talked about the pros, and I think we're at a point to talk about the cons, because this is a perfect place in the con. So cons of consensual fatherhood is high mental and physical load. This talking about what this scenario. If this guy was a consensual father in this situation, his high mental and physical load may be affected. Anxiety and fear of failure may be affected. The loss of personal freedom and identity, deciding to be a consensual father. Dad guilt and performance pressure, like, am I doing this good? If I'm not doing it good, I might quit. Strain on romantic relationship. And this is the part that a lot of people don't think about when you have these very successful marriages and they end up having children, and somehow that relationship that was tight gets strained because you begin to lose stuff, because now y'all got 3 kids that y'all had back to back to try to get them on. And now you're losing all your time together. So this is something I advocate so much. And the last thing is, we always talk about financial stress, the financial stress of it all. Those are some of the cons. Those are not the reasons that non-consensual fathers, we talk about consensual fathers. These are some of the cons for them in dealing with being this consensual father. And so it plays in opposite of the pros.
Go ahead, Teddy, you were gonna say.
I'm sorry, Teddy.
I just had a question of Brother Johnny. So out of the cases that you have dealt with where the father finds out that the children are not his, what percentage of those fathers still continue to be unforcibly in those children's lives, sacrificing their time, their talent, and their treasure to these now non-biological kids? I'd be interested to know. I asked that because when I look into myself, I would not have the capacity to be able to continue in that aspect, to be honest.
You 10 years in though, Tenny. You 10 years in. You done been to Little League. You done graduated elementary school, or going to almost. You did kindergarten. You went to the graduation. You went to all the PTA meetings. The kid is 10 years old. He got your name. He junior. My God, you gonna just call it a day?
You know what happens, Gaspar, and Tenny? I think that when it comes to that, sometimes you have to be in the situation, but I think the person that you won't just drop them.
Correct.
Right? You'll be there. But to go with what someone said, and I can't remember who said this. If I get that phone call talking about these kids need, you don't have the right to tell me what they need, right? That's not your position anymore, because you've already deceived me. I'll love the kids. I'll be there for the kids, but you have no demands on me when it comes to these kids. Because one part of that consensual fatherhood that people don't understand is I don't have to be there. I want to be there. I want to give up myself. Like Tenny was saying, I want to give up my time, my treasures, and all this other stuff, because that's the type of person that I am. But you don't give me any obligation for it.
I hear you.
And that's where the difference lies. Where if you get that phone call of obligation, you're like, you better get off my phone and stop playing with me. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'd still be willing to do it if it was just me for my children, even though I understand who they are. Coming back to Tenny's question as well, as far as the percentage, generally, Tenny, I'll say 90% of them end in divorce. Okay, there's those very, very rare occasion where the partners stay together, but 90% of them end in divorce. And I would say it's 50-50, depending on the age of the children, that the father will still stay around. So if they were very young kids, they initially probably stayed, but at some point decided, I can't do this anymore. Emotionally, to look at them every day, or when I do see them, because we're no longer husband and wife. Matter of fact, he might be so distraught in the situation and part of the divorce that he don't even want time sharing. He's like, I'll see them when I feel like seeing them. So it gets to the point where that's oftentimes what happens depending on the age of the children. Obviously, the older the children, the commitment that the father may have had with them is a lot stronger, and connection to them. Where when they're younger, what I've seen is that they initially are okay with being there, but they slowly but surely step away because they're, as Gene said, they're not obligated any longer, and they're doing it when they choose to do it. And the damage that has occurred from the relationship impacts their desire to choose to be there. Where when you are, even when the relationship itself is no good with someone who that's their biological child, they'll still make the commitment because that's their child for the most part. But if the relationship is ended through any form of deceit, and this obligation is no longer there for me, then why am I choosing to still be obligated to something that is no longer a requirement of me, even though had I been married to her still, or those are my children, I would have a completely different mindset about it. I hope that makes that's direction on the answer. Go ahead.
It makes a lot of selfish sense, but it makes sense nonetheless. I don't think we have we're talking about, I don't think we have a consensual problem. I think we have a character problem. And here's why. Because everything we just explained, men put women through 2 to 3 times more.
There he go.
But remember, I got to wear my diva's advocate. I got to be the diva's advocate now.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
And everything you just said in that 90%, if we was to flip that around about men having kids outside of the relationships, what's the percentage on those survivors?
True. Yeah.
And so, if we're gonna tell the whole truth, let's just tell the whole truth. But we got to make sure that both perspectives are on the table and both outcomes are on the table. So this don't be a fairy tale fatherhood topic right now.
Well, I would even argue your point there, though, because in most of those scenarios that you talked about, at least the woman wasn't deceived into thinking the child was hers. She knew from jump. The other lady was pregnant. She wasn't pregnant.
And so that's not a right way to do a wrong thing. But what I am saying, you trying to make it.
Can I just add something in here that's so? I want to touch base because we're in a place where also there is this percentage of men who deal with this, and it brings in the part that we don't want to talk about, right? We're talking about a father finding out the kids is not his, and then now how he can just initially been this consensual father and just eventually can break him down, right? It basically makes him. And I want you to think about that pain, because sometimes I know that we don't deserve any empathy. Nobody should feel about our feelings. We should just take everything that happens. But what happens to those non-consensual fathers who, and when I say this is the same thing sometimes for them, and not the same way, but the same pain, the same agony that they sometimes have in the capacity to say, hey, I wanted, at some point, look, my idea, consensual fatherhood has been taken away from me, right? This is not the person I wanted to consensually father with, right? But guess what? I went out there and did the Humpty Hump, and so now I'm stuck with the Trumpty Trump, right? And that's one thing. But that same those men, if we want to give men feelings, we want to say they can have emotions, that also sometimes become a pain for them. So the obligation that comes all the time, because there is this obligation for many men once they get a woman pregnant, regardless if they want to be consensual or not, is accountability, responsibility. So there's a large majority of men who go and say, I want to take on the responsibility. Right? They go and say, well, I'm like the large majority of teenage pregnancy young men, very few of them say, I'm out. I'm doing something else. Unless they don't have control over their own life. And their parents send them off to the military, or the parents send them just like the mothers do. Just like for the mothers, they send them somewhere else so the dude can't see, or the woman can't see anymore. But that doesn't change the pain that those people have about this situation, because it's like it is almost in the capacity of something that you wanted being taken away from you. And so now you'll say, hey, okay, it was taken away, but I'm going to go with what I got now and make it work out. The problem is that you're still harboring that dissension that they took it away from you. You know what I mean? Like that's what becomes. And so you try to work it out. Many of them try to work it out, try to make it, make it go the way it can go, make it things happen, be good with it. But they begin to deal with, these things of, I initially didn't want this. I now agreed to take it, and now look what's happening. I'm trying to be this now. I'm trying to change my non-consent to consent, and every day I turn around, I'm getting the blowback of reminding me that I was put in a non-consent situation.
So the obstacles
happen, and so
the obstacles keep coming up to you,
right?
Even though you're trying to be consensual.
And so, if I wanted to be consensual, I can't, because you're not treating the other person is not treating me consensually. Like if I was consensual, so I didn't have a choice. I decided to try to be consensual, and now the person is treating me like I'm non-consensual. So I decided, I was already non-consensual. I tried to be consensual, and you treat me like a non-consensual, like I almost like not even non-consensual, like I was just, that I did something to you. And I think that the point that I tell people is really we did something to each other by not being mature about our sexuality and how we activated our sexuality. It's no longer I did it. I can blame them. You can blame me, because we also have shame and pride that we don't want other people to know about what we do in the secretness of sexuality and how we do and what we didn't do and all those things. So we then would always want to display the most admirable part. And we know in this society, victims will always get passed. If someone is a victim of somebody, they always get a pass until you find out, she was a victim. And again, she was a victim of him getting pregnant, and then he acted crazy. Then they tried to work it out, and then only find out 10 years later, they ain't even got them as kids. So he was non-consensual. He tried to become consensual, was put into this bond of like, well, you're not really because as much as it's for us, that it's not the person we want to have a child with, those women also find out that we're not the people they want to have a child with. So it's not a one-way street, like we control everything. It just looks that way because we are in a man's society where it allegedly is said that we run what happens. It's a man's world, but it wouldn't be nothing without the woman's touch. And so that touch is to make the decision to say, hey, this your baby or not your baby, I'll keep it or I don't keep it, or I'll make this comfortable for you to be a consensual father, or I'll make you a non-consensual father. Either way, they have some control in this whole situation that we have to be very clear in understanding that, yes, men need to take their responsibility. They need to understand their part and role, but it is not a clean sweep that, the woman and women in this situation don't have to do anything or don't have to take on the same accountability and responsibility, because they'll say, I'm stuck with having to be a parent. I have to raise a child, but you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to.
True.
In many instances, I'd be willing to risk my professional integrity that if you gave the opportunity to men who had children out of wedlock, the opportunity to say, hey, you can have your child just by nature. You can have your child this time and that time. I'm not going to tell you what to do with them, how to do it, what you got to do, any of that. You will find that many kids would grow up with both of their parents just in separate situations.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on that, Ron, but the part that I would say is that there's a lot of women that have allowed or wanted that to happen, giving the father umpteen opportunities to be the man that he claims he wants to be, even the non-consensual who claim he want to be consensual. And every time he says, I'm going to be there to pick up Lil J, she's sitting there, Lil J, excited to see daddy coming, waiting. And as Drake said, I ain't believing in nobody because he didn't show up, left me there with my heart hanging every time, wait for him to come through the door.
That's it. I mean, I hear that. That's easy. That's easy. And this is what I would say to you, Johnny, just in rebuttal.
Gotcha.
If the law said the fathers had children and mothers had to come pick up children from the fathers, would that same situation be happening?
Maybe.
Yes, 100%. It would be happening.
Listen to what I'm saying. If the situation was different, fathers hold custody of children no matter what. Would you have fathers saying she didn't show up? The kids upset she didn't show up. Will we see that? Are we saying that would not happen?
I'm not saying it won't, because we know there's some women out there who.
This is what I'm saying. We do this so often. We make this scenario as if that overall how things are set up doesn't change how things are the outcome. Because if we said, if that's the case, that she giving him opportunities over and over to come and pick the kids up from her house, this and that. But if that was the opposite way around, and guess what? Guess what we find? There is research to show us that men who have custody of their children, the mothers act just like men who don't have custody of their children.
Okay, that's Ron. True. No, that's not. I'm going to tell you something, Ron. That's not historically true, and here's why. Because you got men. No, that's not. I'm saying historically true. That's
historically.
Not
historically. Okay, yeah, historically. Yeah.
Not historically true. First of all, you're not going. You're not going to have the biological makeup and the bond that it takes to really set that scenario, to make that scenario even real. But if the courts was to give you that opportunity, what you just raised, Ron, guess what? The father still, literally, that mother will come back to that father, and that mother will still take on most of their responsibility, more likely to take on that child before that father. That father, and historically, we're talking about when men, now let's just go back not even a good 100 years, when that was happening, because men had more rights, right, than women. And when that was happening, you know what happened, Ron? Take a while, guess what happened? When men had more rights and men had more custody and rights over the family. You know what happened? The convalescent homes got filled up. You understand? And so when you make sure when you're gonna do the research, you better do it right, because it's not gonna come in your favor. And so you got countless tragedies and just atrocities that happened when we did have those rights, when we had full control over the family. Those atrocities, and I'm not just talking about the abuse of women, the abuse of children was even worse, because you got right here in Florida, right up, and I can't think of whether it was Jacksonville in the North Florida somewhere, where you got countless bodies. You understand? Bodies of children that were just abandoned, you understand, and buried in foster care. And so we talk a lot of things, but you're talking about, when you talk about the history of stuff or history of atrocities, man, you don't know the type of history of atrocities that children themselves went through. And so we don't talk about the injustices of children or the history of injustices of children in this country, and primarily brought on by men. And so we're going to have an accurate history, so we can point to some real things to try to justify your scenario of what you just said. And I'm telling you, no, 100%, it won't happen. Those men will abandon them, because we are made and you know what? Again, I said this at the first show we ever did. Men are built to, we'll break up with a woman, we'll go find another woman, but we're not going to break up with a woman and go find other kids. We don't do that. We build, you understand? And so we try to maintain the relationship with our kids. But chances are we will always be on the hunt for other women before we ever, you understand, decide we want to be advocate for other kids.
But I think that you've proven exactly what I'm saying is that fathers, in the most sense, because I want to use this example. We would say traditionally a consensual father is a father that's in the household with his wife, and he is the one leading the household most of the time, in conjunction with his wife, however that has come about. And those families live and prosper.
No, that's not consensual. No, that's not consensual. What you just explained. That's not what's not consensual. What you just said. That's not you just didn't describe a consensual father right there.
How?
That's just a regular nucleus. That's a nucleus family. I think somebody said it earlier. A consensual father is somebody who just simply wants to be a father. I can go with that definition.
Oh, okay.
So once again, here's exactly what I'm saying. So the idea that if a man can be a consensual father, he will do the best job at it.
Correct.
But if you say you need to be a consensual father, but I'm not going to allow you to do it the way that you need to do it as a man, it's not going to happen. It's much easier to go start and get other kids, to not have to deal with you trying to tell me how to do what I need to do. Because without a doubt, we know that parent alienation is real.
True.
So yeah, listen, look at that. I'm going to bring this one episode of the woman who told her kids that their father molested them for years. And then found out that she only told them that. The man had never did anything. The man went to jail. The man did all. He never did anything to his kids just because he no longer wanted to be with her.
And I was saying,
these things happen. For why? For what reason?
Well, oftentimes we've talked about it's a relationship. Well, we already know it's a relationship thing, not necessarily a children thing in those scenarios. So we to your why to that is pretty straightforward in those scenarios. But what I was saying in reference to the consensual fatherhood and all of the things that you talked about in reference to his obligation and his requirement, when you talked about the father being in the house and being the wife, being the leader of the family and being there with his children, it's interesting how Lightborn didn't necessarily agree with that being a consensual fatherhood situation and only described it as a nucleus family and said a consensual father is one who wants to be there for his children regardless. So if he's there because he's being a husband more than he's being a father, is he a consensual father in that scenario? Or is he just there? Is he a consensual, like we've talked about with many men that are in the house, but they're not really fathers, if that makes sense what I'm saying? Is he consensual? So like in a scenario where he's in the house, he's taking care of the financial needs, he's doing all those things, but he doesn't meet their needs emotionally. Is he still not consensual?
Yeah, he's consensual. He's consensual because he's still in the commitment of whatever the obligation you just talked about.
Correct.
And so, he's now whether he's doing a great job of it and what level of the quality of it. You understand? Okay. You can still be consensual and have poor quality, or be more what they call quantitative than qualitative.
I understand. Got you.
So let me chime in real fast.
Hold on,
because I'm sorry. So let me chime in real fast. Thank you, team. I want to comment on one of the things that Lightborn said, which was the mom most definitely would not act as the father if they did not have custody. I 100% disagree with that. The mom would act like the dads if they didn't have the custody, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it's human nature jumps in. What happens is that we tend to speak as if it's definite, like all men are like this, all women are like this.
Correct.
Where it's incorrect. When we talk about what we talk about, sometimes we're talking about a minority, right? Like a minority of men are not there for their kids, but a majority of men are, whether they're single dads, whether they're living apart, or whether they're part of that nucleus, like you were describing. Just like you have a minority of the women who won't be there. They'll be like, yo, I'll be there to pick up little Johnny, and it ain't showing up. Oh, I'll go ahead, I'll give you money for some clothes, and they don't do it. Because you have women of low characteristics, just like you have those men of low characteristics. Something to what you were talking about earlier, Lightborn, which was, it's not consensual that we're talking about, but it's characteristics. Now you're talking about characteristics of a person. And if your morals and your characteristics are low, you're going to be a low parent when you're not around the children. You see what I'm saying? And that's why you have the laws that force people to have to give, just like they force women. And there are some women, and Gaspar can account for this, who are on child support because they're not giving or being a part of that child's life. Is it a large number? No, it's not a large number. But you do have people. So when you speak, you can't speak in absolutes when it comes to that, because not all women want to be a mother.
That part.
You're talking about, right, but I'm just going on studies. And when you're talking about the studies, the reality is what it is. That's why you're going to see. Matter of fact, we just came off the Mother's Day. Let's see what Father's Day looked like, and that's your outcome.
But I don't think that's fair. Like,
yeah, that's not a fair comparison.
But you know what? I know Tenny had something to say. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna hold and let Tenny say what he's gonna say before I come back with like what you said.
Well, I just wanted to add another aspect to consensual fatherhood. When I go back biblically, Joseph was Jesus's stepdad, and Jesus, well, the Holy Spirit had to come and talk to Joseph and give full disclosure that I am the father of this kid. And that is, and I think there's a reason why God did that, because back in that day, for a woman to have a child out of wedlock, such as Mary, you know, Joseph was the epitome of consensual fatherhood, because he knew that God was giving him the responsibility to be his earthly father as a representation of a father. Now, I don't know, the scriptures don't say that there was an immediate consent to dealing with Mary being pregnant.
Correct.
So it took the Holy Spirit to convince Joseph that, listen, this is my son. You know, I'm choosing you to raise him. Don't part Mary. Don't put her aside. I need you to go in there and be Jesus' stepdad. And he did. And God blessed him with the ability to have other children. So I guess if you were to go back to Johnny's earlier description of finding out of after so many years that a child is not yours, it would take the Holy Spirit to really speak to my very being to be able to continue to acknowledge fatherhood over some children that are not biologically mine. I just know that I would not have that capacity unless the Holy Spirit, you know, came down and revealed
some divine intervention, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to throw that in, that Jesus himself had a consensual father who was not his biological father.
Amen to that. Amen to you.
He said God had to send me a sign.
Listen, when The moment Titty started the Jesus with Joseph, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
he was like,
you was
oh, I would
I
need
know I
that
wasn't touching
Holy
that.
Spirit. Go ahead, Rod. You were saying.
I just want to say this, and we're gonna get up out of here because I want see how things get so good. You start getting too good. You start getting too, and we forget it, lose track of time. I just want, like Bourne just said something about, look at Mother's Day just passed and these things. And I think that constructionally, how things are constructed also plays a big role. I think Gene said that it's the person's character. And I believe part of it is their character, but a part of it is also their human nature of not having the responsibility in front of them, right? You know, you don't have to think about a hungry child if you don't see the hungry child. You know, if the child is there in front of you, you have to, you know, I think about the brother who, what was that movie? Jazzy Jeff. Will Smith played his character. I can't think of the guy. And he did all that with his kid and sleeping in the bathroom.
Yeah, I ain't talking about. I can't remember.
Can't think of his name. But that is a perfect example of when we say, like, his mother was living quite fine wherever she was at, doing what she was doing. She said she just couldn't do the child thing. And so the dad didn't take the child to he took the responsibility of his child, like most people do. But my issue always comes, and I hear like Warren saying history and how, you know, history tells us, but history has also did a piece on us to keep us separated. And this is clear. I've seen with my own two eyes that they will not give fathers. They'll send a kid to foster care. They'll send a kid to all kinds of other places instead of with the next of kin who's a father. Now, I can only imagine, you know, in my own situation, if something would happen to my daughter's mother, how many other people they might even be willing to give my child to besides me?
No, that's
not kind of
Ron. That's not even absolutely true. Ron and even Johnny know better than that. That's not.
Listen, Johnny, please, Johnny, please, Johnny, please.
It would depend on the father's background, his history. All of those things play a role in that being an ultimate decision. So, yay and no to what Ron is saying, that yeah, there are instances where the father will not be given the opportunity because he may not be the safest person for the child to be around based on his history. But generally,
what about the circumstances when and I'm just telling you what my own experience, not my personal, but my own experience of things happening to children, and fathers are not even informed. They don't even know. They find out 3 or 4 years later, and then they have to go get a lawyer to fight. And nobody in the court said, "Hey, does this kid have a father?" Oh, did these people? Matter of fact, you ready for this? That the father gets notification that he need to pay somebody else child support. some stranger child support. So I'm just saying, I understand that, yes, human beings do things, but we also have a system that does not in many instances, not just don't want fathers to be with children, but don't even want families to be together. And so I just want to make sure, you know, that's clear. And I don't want people to ever feel like in this context of our conversation, it's saying somebody's bad, somebody's good, somebody this, none of that. We understand all the social economical factors. We understand the emotional, relational factors. We understand all of those things in this conversation and know that it takes up for you. What you can do is what Gene talked about, is say, what's my accountability and how can I make this situation better? Correct. And with that being said, I'll say consensual fatherhood is a significant life decision that is not for everyone. But for those who choose it, it is often seen as a life-enhancing, demanding journey. It is a decision that requires a willingness to embrace change, sacrifice time, and manage high levels of responsibility, but one that can offer unparalleled personal fulfillment. And so that is the summary of tonight's episode, that understanding some of what consensual fatherhood is about and what it takes. We're going to take next week and look at another component of this idea of consensual fatherhood in a way that I think that is it. I hope it can really empower more. And we're not talking about non-consensual. We're talking about consensual. So we're talking about those fathers who made a decision and how are they being, because we spend a lot of time on this show talking about the people who are having a difficulty.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be able to help the people who not having a difficulty in their relationship, but might be having a difficulty within themselves, struggling to maintain something that they don't have a playbook for. They may not have even experienced how to do it, or they're trying to figure out what's. And you said this too, Lightborn, if they being good or bad at it, and that is subjective. You know, who makes it determine if you're good or bad at your fatherhood? In many instances, it can be subjective based on who the person is. Because your mom can tell you good, your wife can tell you bad. So you know who you believe.
It's the person judging. But no, the person. Oftentimes, that person that is derived from. It comes from the person, and usually, you're probably. I think sometimes we're the worst judge of ourselves, but oftentimes we the fairest judge of ourselves. Yeah. Right. So it usually comes from yourself. So I'm not saying nobody's putting that on you. You could listen. Everybody know what they can do better. Now, if you ask me in certain instances of my fatherhood, I can tell you certain areas where I was great at it, and then I can tell you certain areas where I could have did better. So everybody, it is subjective, but it's not just subjective from the external. It's also subjective from the internal.
No doubt.
Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Definitely we had Johnny here, Jag, attorney at law, our key sponsor of the Fatherhood Think Tank. We had tonight. We also had some of the members of the night. You guys don't know this, but those guys who had those names that you might not have been able to recognize, Femi and Dr. Kinley, they were members of that chapter in Nigeria, so they was here. Having some conversation with us tonight. Again, want to thank everybody for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. Look, we'll be back next week, next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. See, I was good this week, right at 7. Was I on time this week, Tinny? Right on time. We're working to get it on time. But guess what? We're on time, but we leave. We're leaving late, but it was late because the conversation was way too good.
We needed that time.
And Black and Play. John Robert, it's good seeing you. We hope to be seeing you soon. We need that. We need your words of wisdom, because you really bring a slice of the knife in there, in there. So definitely thank all the guys who was on. Ross, Femi. I seen a young guy who's listening tonight. Marcus,
Maynard.
And all those, definitely want to thank you for joining us. And we'll see y'all here next week. Fatherhood Think Tank, the 60 to 90 minutes of fathers, for fathers, about fathers, talking about fathers' issues. Thank you and good night.
Hold up. What?
Yeah, what happened to the chant? What's wrong with it?
Oh yeah, my bad.
Wrong show, Ron.
You gotta remember, I'm running this whole thing, so I'm trying to get a good blank boom bang. I forgot all about that. What that you said? I am a man of honor. I am a man of honor. I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
Father, I say that I am.
I am
a man of respect. Father,
I am a man of respect.
Go ahead, Ron.
Father, I say that I am. I say that you are.
You
are.
I say that we are.
We
are.
We are.
Championship
Champions.
fathers. And as we always try to do, hold our kids on our arms, our families and our communities on our back, as we try to think and be wise at the Fatherhood Think Tank. Join us next week, part 2 of the pros and cons of a consensual fatherhood. Thank you and good night.
All right.
Have a great one, fellas.
Y'all be blessed.
That's better. Good night.
Good night.